Hello everyone, welcome to our first video. In this video I'm basically going to show you how to set up a document so you can start tracing over rough sketches in Adobe Illustrator. So here is the JPEG image file I sent you guys. These are basically just some quick sketches that I came up with to kind of give you little challenges to practice tracing over these with the pen tool. So this is basically going to be our steps for a lot of the things that we do in Adobe Illustrator. You'll be creating some sort of a rough sketch or a thumbnail drawing in your sketchbook of some sort, and then tracing over theirs and making a digital vector version of it. We'll be doing this for the logos, and we'll be doing this for some of the other projects as well coming up. So all these I did the pencil by hand in my sketchbook, scanned them in, and then added some rough colors in Photoshop. So as you can see, these are very rough, very loose. There's some details in there, but not a whole lot. But some of these were just little illustrations. Some could be intended to be as logos, and then this one here in the upper right is really just kind of a challenge to see if you know if you can figure out a way to do that. So to start, I'm going to open up a new document on Illustrator. I'm just going to go File, New. And for the most part, it doesn't really, we'll be working in 8.5 by 11 artboards. That's kind of just a good standard size to work in, but it shouldn't matter too much about those exact sizes. Alright, so here I have 8.5 by 11, and then over here on the right, I'm just double checking that size, making sure my size is in inches and not points. Okay, so you want this to be inches, 8.5 by 11. I do know here that this document is horizontal. As you can see, it's a horizontal rectangle, so I'm going to change this orientation to landscape. There we go. So now the landscape is landscape orientation. And then artboards, right now I have it at 2. I'm going to just put that down to 1, and that's all we need. Okay, so I will hit create. There we go. There is our artboard. So a lot of these things I'm going to go over right now should be pretty much review and reminders, depending on when you took Art 109. It will be very similar to a lot of those things, but just kind of reviewing this process of setting up a document for tracing over artwork, how to set up your layers, and kind of what tools to start out to use for this. Okay. So here we go. So just remember, up here in the upper right hand corner, make sure you're in Essentials Classic. I think it defaults to Essentials, and as you can see, this looks a little bit different. I prefer the layout on Essentials Classic just because it has all these panels over here. It has your other panels you can set up, and then all your tools and different options as well. And then all your tools are over here, and here it is. It's labeled Untitled right now. So to get a file into here, so you need to get that image file. So you can download that from Canvas, and then I'll just open it up as the folder. Okay, so here it is in my recents right now. It's also in my desktop. If I go and find it on here somewhere, oh, that's Documents, Desktop. Switch this to thumbnail view. Here it is. So there's that file. So the easiest way I find to get files in there is just to take it from its folder location and just drag it and drop it right in there. Very simple. Okay. So as I'm going over these different things, follow along with me and do it kind of on your own. Take some written notes, pause the video, and practice it on your own as you're working. Just so you can go through these simple first steps multiple times and feel really comfortable with them. Because we are going to do it throughout the class here in this first week, just make sure you're getting comfortable with these first steps of setting up an Illustrator document. I know a lot of you guys will have had experience in this already, but this is a good reminder and a review to just make sure you're really understanding this part of the process. Okay, so remember, if we ever do need to move this around or resize it, you need to use your selection tool there. So that's going to be the best way to move it around. And remember, if you do resize it, there, see, it got all squished, okay? So hold Shift as you resize, and that will lock those proportions so it doesn't get squished one way or the other. We don't want it looking like this. Eventually, you'll be working from your own drawings, so you don't want to mess up the drawings that you've done. Okay. So now we're going to start. Oh, before we do that, anytime you bring an outside file into Illustrator, you have the option to embed that file. And what that means is that makes the file stuck into this program. If I didn't embed it, then I could go and make changes to this original file. I could change the colors, I could crop it differently, and it would change it right here. But also, if I moved the location of this file, I moved it in a different folder, it would then disappear from here. So I usually like to just hit embed right there. So now it won't get messed with if I move the original file. All right, so hopefully you guys, so yeah, that's the selection tool here. Use it to move it around and resize it. So hopefully you guys are familiar with layers. I know in my version of 109, I really I practice with the class using layers a lot. So first, what we want to do is set layer 1, which is the layer that has our sketches on it. Set that as a template layer. That will allow us to trace over those images and work from it that way. So I'm just going to double click right on this white square right here. And I'm going to rename this sketches. And then check this box that says template. And as you can see, this will dim the images to 50%, and it will automatically lock it. So there we go. So now this can no longer be moved around. Okay, so that's locked, and it's slightly dimmer, so you can see it as you start to trace over it. So then you'll make a new layer. So you can choose any one of these to start on. This one might be one of the easier ones. The turtle might be a little easier as well. So let's start with an easy one here. We can rename this layer. Let's call this mountain logo. Okay. And then I'm just going to grab my pen tool here. So hopefully you guys, this is just more practice to get you practicing your pen tool again. I'm going to work from background to foreground and big shapes to small shapes. So I'm going to start with the sky, then do the sun, clouds, and then the mountains. And then I'll finish it off with a clipping mask around that to fit into a circle. Okay, so the next video I'll start to go into some of these different logos and trace over them with the pen tool. So watch those next ones. Try to do it on your own, see how far you can get, and then kind of tune into the next video if you hit problem spots or you want to see how I do it. Again, there's no one way to do these. Everyone's going to have their slightly different version of how they do this, but using layers, using the pen tool, and working big shapes to small shapes, background to foreground will be the best way to do that. All right. So check out the next video, and I'll go into some of these specific designs and start tracing over those.